How's it going, guys? Andrew here with Justified EDC. And I apologize for the lack of uploads recently. You can probably still hear it in my voice a little bit. I am still a bit sick. I'm recovering from some bronchitis. Feeling a lot better than I have been, but still, you're probably going to hear me coughing a little bit throughout this video, and my voice might seem a little bit raspy. So I apologize for that. But I wanted to get a video out for you guys. This is going to be a couple quick knife reviews. I've been doing a lot of new knives and gear videos recently, and haven't been able to put out as many reviews as I'd want to. So this is going to be a couple different reviews here, all in one video. And as I say every time that I do this, this doesn't mean that I think less of any of these knives or tools or anything. It's just that sometimes I have to compile things into one video to get them out in a timely manner, and sometimes there's just not a whole lot to say about certain knives, and that's usually a good thing, actually. So all of that out of the way, I'm going to set all this stuff off to the side here while we thank our channel sponsors. First of all, being Auxiliary Manufacturing. Mike over at Auxiliary Manufacturing, longtime supporter of the channel, makes awesome custom USA-made fixed blades like this Pocket Bowie XL here, which a review will be coming up here soon. The original Pocket Bowie. He's got the Sumi here. Got a bunch of different models. He's really got something for everyone. So if you're looking for a custom fixed blade, definitely go check out Mike. He's doing awesome work. I do have a discount code with him, code Justified10. Will get you 10% off your order on his website. I will leave links to his stuff down in the description, as well as that discount code. And now we have a second channel sponsor actually joining the channel. And where did I put it? Here we go. FLC Knives out of Canada. David up in Canada is making awesome custom fixed blades and tools as well. Actually, the only thing I have on hand right now of his, because this is a very new sponsorship, is his pry tool, which is absolutely my most favorite pry tool of all time. It's no frills. It's got a great carry system. Great materials. He does some of the best kydex in the game in terms of just minimalist designs for his sheaths. So really looking forward to having more of him on the channel, and thank you to him for sponsoring the channel as always. And let's get right into the reviews. You will see more about FLC Knives here in the future. Like I said, I will leave links to all the channel sponsor stuff down in the description. No discount code yet, but there will be one coming very soon from FLC Knives, so stay tuned for that. Let's see, what should we do here first? So these are two knives from a company called Atlas Industries. These I actually picked up back in December at a gun show that I went to with G3D Printables, my company, and I met the owner, John, and we got talking. I told him that I had a channel. He sent me along with these to review. These are his Coyote fixed blades. I believe that's the name. You can get these in a bunch of different configurations. You can get them in several different blade shapes. I happen to have technically I think they call this a drop point, but it's a straight back. We're going to call it the drop point, and then an American Tonto. You can get them in a bunch of different G10 scale options, a bunch of different colors. And then you can get them in either D2 for $90, or you can get them in M390, which is the versions I have here, for $120. These are imported. I'm not exactly sure where they're made. It doesn't matter a whole lot to me. I think, for the price and the materials and everything, it seems to be a solid deal. But let me just go ahead and get you some specs on these. So your blade length is coming in at right about 3.5 inches of cutting length, right over 3.5 back to the handle here. Overall length of 8 inches. Your handle length is coming in at about 4.25. Your spine thickness here, you have an 1/8 inch thick M390 blade, full flat ground with a secondary bevel. Same thing here with the Tonto. It is not a full height flat grind, but you still have a flat grind, secondary bevel. Same thickness on these as well. I know he is coming out with some new steel on this. He is coming out with a MagnaCut version, and there's also going to be a double-edged dagger version when the MagnaCut version comes out. So stay tuned for those if you're not interested in a D2 or M390. He does have some MagnaCut coming. They also all come with these very nicely done Kydex sheaths. In terms of, you know, the overall size of the knife compared to the sheath, these are a little bit large, but overall, because of how slim these knives are, the sheath really isn't all that big. Your thickest point here is right about 1.5 inches. Comes with an ulti clip, which is very nice. A lot of companies just throw out, you know, their Kydex with just a cheap plastic clip, or they give you an option to buy these separately. But it is nice to see these coming with a quality clip from the factory. You guys know I'm a big fan of Discreet Carry Concepts clips, but ulti clips work just as well. If you're not familiar with them, all they do here, you lift that latch there, and there's this piece of spring steel that's kind of a hook shape. You put that down over your pocket or inside your waistband or whatever, and then you close that down, and now that hook will grab onto the material of your pants and won't come out. So you don't need a belt to carry this. You can carry it in pocket, you can carry it inside the waistband, behind your belt, anything like that. But also, these have a lot of different hole spacings. You can mount, you know, soft loops or any other kind of clips that you want to carry them on. These would probably carry very nicely horizontally with some loops because they are so slim. So then getting to the performance of it and just my thoughts on these, this is not my normal, you know, form factor for an EDC fixed blade, but I was kind of intrigued by this because of how slim and thin it was. Surprisingly, you know, these G10 scales are contoured, if you can see that here. So even though they are very, very thin, you know, your handle thickness is less than 1/2 inch. Because they are contoured and because you have the length of the handle, you actually can get a very secure grip on these. You're not going to want to be doing, you know, push cuts all day long, you know, any kind of bushcraft work or anything like that. But for normal EDC use and stuff like that, these are very, very comfortable, and I was actually pretty surprised by that. You know, the Tonto I didn't use nearly as much just because I'm really not a big fan of Tontos just in general. If you are a Tonto fan, this one is pretty attractive. But I mostly used the straight back here, or drop point, or whatever you want to call it. And as you can see here, based on the wear of the coating, you can kind of see how much more this one was used. But I actually did a fair amount of, I carried this a couple times for EDC, and I actually did quite a bit of cardboard cutting with this, and I was worried because, you know, how thick the stock is and how thin the grind is. Even though it is a full flat grind, it's a very short grind. The edge on this came very sharp, and this actually did a decent amount of cardboard cutting for its thickness. You know, when you get to some of like the double or triple thick layer cardboard, this has a little bit of trouble. But even then, because you have such an acute tip, you can kind of just lay it on a table and use it as a scalpel and zip through it. So this was actually a very, very useful little knife. Honestly, more so than I thought it would be. I was kind of just intrigued by the shape, but I was very happy with the performance. The M390 held up decently well. I'd say it's probably a little bit, they didn't advertise anywhere what their HRC was. John, if you're watching this, feel free to drop it in the comments. I would assume the HRC on this is a little bit lower. Maybe, you know, something like, you know, 58, 59 HRC, because, you know, it did hold up very well, but it didn't hold up as long as some of the, you know, higher HRC M390 that I've tried. But it wasn't an unacceptable level by any means. So just something to be aware of. That's kind of just a nitpick. The grind on the edge actually is fairly even, which for imported knives can be really hit or miss. Honestly, even American-made stuff these days, getting an even edge bevel is not always something you see right from the factory. So I'm very happy to see that that is even on both sides. Came nice and sharp. Same thing on the Tonto here. Just show that off. Very nice secondary edge. And then talking about the sheath specifically, the retention is very nice. If you can hear that, it clicks in. Very good retention. That's not coming out of there. If you did want to neck carry this, it's a little bit long, but it's very, very thin. So if you're okay with the length of this, so this would make a nice neck carry because of how lightweight and minimalist it is. You could, since you have dual holes up here at the top, you could easily loop a ball chain through there. So if you want to carry that upside down, that would be no problem. There's not really any rattle or play in the sheath, which is nice to see. Let me get you a weight on these guys as well. Since we're talking about a kind of minimalist style knife here. So, weight, let's see. All right. Without the sheath, these are coming in at 1.8 ounces. And then with the sheath and the ulti-clip, right about 3.1, so right around 3 ounces. So a very doable amount. You know, if you took the ulti-clip off to do neck carry, it would even save you a little bit of weight, less than 3 ounces, which for about 3.5 inches of blade, I'd say 1.8 ounces is very, very nice. I haven't taken these handles apart, but I would assume they are a little skeletonized underneath because the balance is very nice of these. They don't feel super handle heavy, which a lot of these style knives tend to fall into that. But I don't have a whole lot else to say about these. These are really, really cool. Again, not really my typical style, but it was nice to try out something different, and I can definitely see people who would really like these. I would definitely recommend these to someone who, you know, doesn't need to do a bunch of super slicing all the time. You know, if you want something that's super, super thin behind the edge and super duper slicey, this might not be for you, but if you something in between where you have a little bit of extra thickness, if you need to use that tip, but still going to be a good cutter and very, very lightweight and minimalist, I could definitely see this being a good option for you. Again, you can get a cheaper version of this in D2 for 90 bucks, and then these versions in M390 are coming in at around 120. I'm not sure what the MagnaCut versions were. I would assume they're going to be a little bit more, maybe around the 150 mark. If they can make these in MagnaCut for around the 150 mark, I think that would be super cool, and I'm definitely picking up one of the double-edged daggers in MagnaCut because I think that's a great shape on this handle. So anyways, thank you to Atlas Industries for sending these over. I really do appreciate it. These are probably going to still pop up at my EDC every once in a while, so keep an eye out for that, but definitely recommend these. Not a whole lot bad to say about them. So solid work by Atlas Industries. The next thing here, let's talk about are some things that, actually, let's do this one first. So this was sent to me by my buddy on Instagram, EDC Bonanza. I appreciate him sending stuff over. He actually sent the next two things we're going to talk about. So this is not mine to keep, but these were sent to me by a friend for me to review. This is the Reate EXO-U. So they have a whole EXO series of gravity knives. And you can get them in a bunch of different sizes and blade shapes and steels and handle configurations and everything. And I always thought they were cool. I thought they were a little bit overpriced for a Chinese knife. But that being said, these are coming in at around the $75, $80 mark. And they're a utility blade, so I could actually kind of justify carrying this. A lot of the ones with an actual blade are like a little bit thick, not really super utilitarian. But because this one has a replaceable utility blade, I was like, you know what, if I can check one of these out, that would be pretty cool. You can check out the mechanism, and it would actually be a useful little part of your EDC because it is so small. So let's get some specs on here. Handles are fully aluminum. Again, it is a gravity knife, so you're kind of working with a two-piece handle here, with the pivot being in the back, opens up like that, and then you have this piece in the middle that travels back and forth and holds your blade. When it's closed, it clamps down around that so the blade can't move back or forth, and then you have the secondary lock on here so the handle can't come open. So that whole part there is made out of aluminum. Steel traveler. These parts up here holding the blade are steel, and then obviously you have you can use whatever standard utility blades you want. The way that you replace the blade here is this is actually a spring mechanism. So if you look here at the top, you actually push down on this piece, that piece pops off, and then you can either, you know, flip the blade to the other side to use it or replace the blade. The blade just sits in here only in one position and sits in here with that little groove. And then this piece here, if I get it in the right orientation, has two little notches down here and two little notches on the bottom. Those line up with the cutouts in the blade, I guess technically we're going to call it. So those slip in there, and then you just push it down again and pop that back in there. Very intuitive and easy to do. I appreciate that you don't need any tools to change the blade. I heard some concerns from people, and a couple people asked me if I'd had any issues with this accidentally popping out, because it is a spring mechanism. People were worried about, you know, with some use, if this would pop out and you'd lose your blade. I have not had that happen, and I've used this quite a bit. Again, really, like, even on, like, I can only really see that happening if you were kind of, like, torquing it, and with how thin utility blades are, I can't really ever see a reason to be torquing on the blade like that. The only other way I can see that happening is if you have your thumb out here to kind of support a cut. So there you can see if I rest my thumb there, it does start to pop out. But you kind of just learn as you use this to not put your thumb there. You can either choke back on the spot where you have jimping, or you can kind of overshoot it and put it on the spot here where this isn't. So that's definitely a risk if you're not paying attention. You could accidentally put your thumb there and pop that out a little bit. But if you just overshoot it like that, or choke back on it, it's not really a problem. So I haven't had that being a problem. Back to basic details. You have a deep carry pocket clip fold over. The clip is inlaid, the screw is not, but I haven't had any problems with that getting hung up on my pocket or anything. The clip works very, very well. This is small enough that I can carry in the fifth pocket of my jeans. Your jeans may vary, but for mine, I can carry this in the fifth pocket. And then let me just give you an overall length here. When it's open, your overall length is just under 6 inches. Your handle length here is 3.5 inches. And then the overall blade length, quote unquote, is about 2.25. But the actual sharpened edge here, you're looking at about 1.25 inches. So you're getting just over half of the blade exposed, which is nice. On a lot of utility blades, you know, you're only getting like the front piece of that exposed. You actually get a decent amount of the blade exposed on this one, which I appreciate. And that's just due to, you know, how the mechanism works and how it's held in there. So that's really nice. And then let's talk about just, you know, the form factor of this, how it was in use, how it was to use a gravity knife. First of all, yes, this is extremely fidget friendly. That's not something I really focus on my channel, because every other knife channel does that, and that seems to be the only thing people care about in the industry these days. And while I don't think the fidget factor of a tool or knife is necessarily important, it is fun. And this is definitely a fun piece. So you can either just kind of drop it down and close it and lock it up, and then, you know, just open it up, let it drop, close, lock it. You can also flick it out like that. You can do some fun, like, reverse grip stuff where you do it like that. If you've ever used, like, the Tri-Folder by Fred Perrin, or like the Cold Steel, what was it called, the Triple Action, any of those types of knives, it's very similar in how you play with it to those. A lot of, like, the hand manipulations you're doing and the wrist movements you're doing are very similar to that. Especially in the reverse grip, doing this and closing it back up feels very close to how you play with a Fred Perrin Tri-Folder. So it is very fun. And I'm okay with fidget factor as long as it doesn't compromise the utility of something. And I think this is probably the best version of the Reate EXO series, because I think it's the best. It's the best union of fidget factor and being very fun and being very utilitarian. You know, it's small enough that you actually want to carry it. It's very lightweight. I'll get you a weight on here again. It's very lightweight. It's very easy to use, and it's practical in use. You know, because it is a tip down carry. You kind of pull this out of your pocket and then just let it drop, and it's already open. There's not really any, like, secondary things you have to do. There's no opening a blade. You don't even have to flick it out. Like, there's no wrist flick. You can literally just, once you take it out of your pocket, you just drop that lock, and then you're already facing down, you just let it drop out, and there you have your blade ready. And then when you're done using it, you're probably holding it like this already. You just drop it back in, put it back in your pocket. Once you get used to it, it's very intuitive to use. It's kind of hard to do everything under the camera, but it does get very easy to use. When I first got it, I was having a little bit of trouble doing it, right out of the pocket, but you get used to it very quickly. So weight on here, 2.7 ounces. So again, using an aluminum frame here, I think was great. If they had made this like a steel frame to try to cut costs, I think it would have been a little bit chunky for the size. Like it would have reminded me of like the Chavez utility knives that are just way too big and chunky to be worth carrying. But this is slim enough and lightweight enough that I think it's worth it. I'm just going to give you a couple size comparisons here to some other utility knives that I have on hand. So all closed up, here it is next to like the Giltech Ruck. Here's another version of the Giltech Ruck, and even another version of the Giltech Ruck. Can you tell I have favorites? Here it is against like your standard pop knife. Here it is against the Gear Infusion Ghost TI. And then compared to some bigger stuff, so I'll just show you thicknesses compared to some of these. So it's definitely more like full-size knife thickness as opposed to a lot of these like smaller utility blades, but it's also doing a lot of things that these other utility knives don't do. So here it is, open next to things like, here's your standard Milwaukee Fastback. So next to that, and then here is the Milwaukee Fastback with the bit driver. And then just looking at overall size, like obviously this one's bigger because it's got the extra tools, but when you're looking at it compared to, I would say this is very much a competitor, not necessarily competitor because of the price difference. Again, you can get these for like less than $20 and these are like $75, $80, but this almost feels like a premium competitor to the standard Milwaukee Fastback. Overall, you got the gravity knife action, the fidget friendliness of it. You have a lot of blade exposed. You have toolless blade changing. A lot of things that are very similar. And the Milwaukee Fastback is one of my favorite tools of all time, especially the one with the bit driver. So in terms of, like if you like carrying just a standard Fastback like this and you want something a little bit more premium, a little more special feeling, I can definitely see this being an option. Again, deep carry clips on both of them. This one is tipped down only, but in terms of how deep they carry, very, very similar. I just think these are like a really good comparison between each other. So if you like the Fastback, you want to upgrade it to something a little bit more special, I can definitely see the EXO-U being an option. Other than that, it's just a fun knife. I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it other than it's broken in nicely. I haven't had any issues with it. Nothing's come loose, nothing's broken, nothing's failed on me, anything like that. It's just a solid knife, which I don't say much about Reate. I'm not a huge fan of that company, but this is a win from them, absolutely. And I would definitely say for the price that if you're into something like this, definitely check it out. All right, next one. Also from my boy EDC Bonanza on Instagram, he sent this over. This is something I've been wanting to check out for a while. This is the Spyderco Lil Temperance 3 in K390. And someone actually corrected me on my first impressions video of this. This was actually, the Lil Temperance was actually the first Spyderco to feature a compression lock. It predates, the PM2 and the Para 3 and the really popular compression lock knives. But they've been doing this one in a compression lock for a while. So basic overall specs here, you got a leaf shape, full flat ground K390 blade. Your handles are injection molded. You've got full steel liners inside that are skeletonized. Compression lock on the back, if you're familiar with the PM2 or Para 3, same idea. Flow-through construction, standoffs, four-way position pocket clip. You can carry this left hand or right hand, tip up or tip down. It is not a deep carry. It's kind of that old style clip, but I don't mind that for this knife because it is kind of more of a utilitarian work knife kind of vibe. I like having a little bit sticking up out of my pocket so it's easier to grab. Other than that, specs, this is coming in at over an 1/8 inch thick. I forgot to take an exact measurement, but like as a comparison here, let me show you this next to a Para 3 stock, which is the same thing as a PM2. The stock thickness difference there, as you can see, this is just a hair thicker, but it does have that distal taper out towards the tip. So while the stock remains thick back here, it does thin out towards that tip. Again, full flat ground, no sharpening choil, no forward finger choil, which I greatly appreciate. You got some jimping here on the back with this thumb ramp. Yeah, so those are the overall specs here. Let me get you some sizes and some weights. So your overall blade length here is coming in at 2 3/4 inches of blade. Your handle length is coming in, your grip area is about 4 inches. And then your overall length here is 7 1/4. And then the weight on this guy, this is a lightweight model, obviously. Well, they don't advertise it as a lightweight model, but it's similar to a lightweight model. Oh, sorry, I thought we stopped filming there. There's just a battery notification. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Weight, we're looking at 3.8 ounces, so it's a little heftier than you would imagine. If I had it around, I think my wife actually has it with her right now. She has a Para 3 lightweight in, no, the steel doesn't matter. It's S90V, but it doesn't really matter for weight reasons. This is very similar in kind of vibe to the Para 3 lightweight, only the Para 3 lightweight is actually much less weight than this is. This is a little beefy, even though it's got the FRN scale. So just my overall thoughts on this. Again, this isn't going to be an overview of K390 as a steel. I've already done that with my Indela, which I'll pull out here just to give you some size comparisons. Here is the Indela. Here is where I just had the Para 3. Let's see, where's my PM2? PM2. Let's see, what else can we do as a comparison? Oh, here is an Endura. Kind of just giving you Spyderco comparisons. Here's some non-Spyderco comparisons. Here it is against Chris Reeve Large Sebenza, 31 specifically, not that that matters. Here it is against the SC Avispa. This is the automatic version, but same overall length as the manual. And then here it is against the Quiet Carry Drift L. I keep picking up the wrong knife. Quiet Carry Drift L, and here it is against the TRM Neutron. So especially there against the Neutron, you can see this is not a large knife. It's hefty, you know, it's thick, it's thick, it's on the thicker side. Your thickness is like 1/2 inch thick, and it's a little bit weighty, but it is not a large knife. I actually thought this was going to be a bit smaller just by looking at it online, but it turns out to be actually very hand-filling. I wear medium-sized gloves. I can get a full grip on it with a little bit extra sticking out in hammer grip, but you can still choke back on it here in saber grip and have a full 4-finger grip, which I really appreciate. And then your overall blade length here is enough to get a lot of work done, but you can still get your finger out to that tip. The leaf-shaped blade is great. Gives you a little bit of belly, a little bit of flat. You can get down and cut on surfaces, but you can also get down and drag that tip. Very, very useful overall blade shape. Again, not an overview of K390, but K390 is a extremely high wear resistance carbon steel. So it has a lot of edge retention. It is not stainless, as you can see here with my Indela. It will develop a patina. But as for how high of edge retention it actually has decent toughness. And from my experience with this, it's also fairly easy to sharpen. So K390 has quickly become one of my favorite steels because it lasts forever, but it doesn't chip out on me very easily. And when I do have to sharpen it, it doesn't take me forever. I can sharpen it on my normal stones. I don't need any special diamond stones or anything, which is cool compared to a lot of things like your 115Vs, your Rex 121s, like your other really high edge retention steels. This isn't quite at that level, but it's definitely going to hold an edge longer than your, Magna Cuts, S45VNs, 20CVs, M390s. It's going to hold an edge longer than that, and it's going to be tougher. So I really appreciate that. I don't mind a little bit of staining on the blade. Doesn't bother me at all. Really, my only gripe with this knife is, one, the price. This is one of their imported models from Japan, which Seki City does a great job. But again, it is an imported knife, and it's one of their injection molded versions, and it's coming in at $175. The other K390 models coming out of Seki City are coming around like the $140, $150 range. Which I guess this is on par for that then. I guess you are using a more complex lock. So I can see the price increase a little bit. I would love if this was like down around the $150 mark. If they could get this down around the $150 mark, I think this would be a no-brainer. But as it stands now, you really see them anywhere from like 175 to 200, and I think that's a little bit much. I think these are on sale in a couple places right now, but yeah, getting close to the $200 mark, I think that is a bit much for this knife. But that being said, it does perform very well. It's what I wish the Para 3 was, in terms of it fills your hand better. You don't have a finger choil that's taking away unnecessary blade length, so you get all that sharpened blade length back with this because you're not dealing with the stupid finger choil. Again, it's not all that much thicker, but it is wider in hand, so you get more of a full feeling grip. Like if I had to push into a cut and I had to choose between these two knives, I would definitely take this one, even though this one is injection molded. That's the other thing with, Spyderco's G10 handles and stuff. These are some aftermarket scales, but similar concept. They're kind of just flat and blocky, and they put a chamfer on the edge, but you're kind of just holding a rectangle. On the injection molded handles, they actually contour these scales over, so they're a little bit more comfortable. Really, my only gripe with this is the stock thickness. If I could change one thing on this knife, I would drop this stock thickness down closer towards something like the Adela Endora kind of vibe. Just if you're gonna have a steel that can cut forever, people are going to use it for stuff that's very abrasive. I use this for a lot for breaking down, over the holidays, and we got some new furniture in, so we had a ton of cardboard that I had to break down to be able to, our recycling's weird. They'll only take it if it's all broken down and put into bags. So I have to cut a lot of cardboard, and I used it for that. And this, while the edge retention on both of these was stellar, this one cuts much better because even though they're both full flat grinds, you look at that stock thickness difference, and when you get to some of the thicker, like double or triple layer cardboards, that thick spine really starts to hinder being able to push through this stuff. So I guess if you wanted, if you were looking more for like a work knife instead of a dedicated slicer, the extra thickness might be good for you. Just be aware it does thin out towards that tip, which is why it's kind of in between, where like it's not super, it's kind of like the PM2 for me, where it's not thick enough all the way out to be like a hard use knife, but it's not thin enough in all the right places to be a super slicer. And that's kind of how I feel about this, which is really disappointing. If this stock was thinner, I'd say this is a perfect super slicey EDC knife. If it was a little thicker out towards the tip, I'd say this was a great, harder use work knife that is also still going to hold its edge for forever. But because it's so thick back here, but it thins out so much towards the tip, it's kind of in a weird in-between space where I don't know who to recommend this to. And as someone who is really looking forward to this knife and really wants it to be good, it's kind of disappointing. I almost wish they had like swedged the top of this so that you didn't have so much drag up here towards the top. But overall, this is still a good knife. I would recommend checking one out, if for no other reason than to learn that you don't need a forward finger choil to be able to get up right behind an edge and to have good ergos and all that. This is a perfect example of how you can have your ergos set up for multiple different grips and stuff and still be able to get up right behind that edge without needing any kind of forward finger choil that's taking away from sharpened edge length. So that's my thoughts on this. Cool knife, probably not for me in the long run, but I appreciate him sending this over for me. All right, one last one here. I know this is getting a little bit long, but I do want to fit one more in here. This is the Civivi Yonder. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of most of the things that Civivi puts out. Overall, I think a lot of their knives really look and feel and perform exactly the same. But this one is different, both in vibe, and I like that this is designed by Zach from Zach in the Wild, Zach Whitmore. If you know him from Blade HQ days, and now he's doing his own thing on his own channel. He's worked with Worksharp and all that kind of stuff, but the dude is a tradie. He knows how to use his knives. He knows a lot about tools and using his tools and all that kind of stuff. So when he put out this design, this is his first knife design, I figured I'd pick it up just to support him, but I've actually kind of fallen in love with this little knife. And I don't even like crossbar locks. So just giving you overall specs here. You have a 14C 28N blade. This is kind of a like reverse tanto, or this very much reminds me of a spay blade. So I'm going to call it a spay blade, but I think they technically call it a reverse tanto. Then you have this very neutral coffin-shaped handle, which if you guys know, I'm a huge fan of coffin handles and neutral handles. You have a bit of a guard up here. This is running on dual thumb studs. The stock is very, very, very thin. Not quite a full flat grind, but because of how thin that stock is, you really don't need it. Dual thumb studs, crossbar lock. The handles are G10. You can get them in micarta as well. And you can also get it with a coated blade. And then deep carry pocket clip, which is inset and the screws are flush. So this is an absolutely excellent pocket clip. It is reversible to the other side and has a tab that fills the space that you're not using, which is nice. And then overall size here, you have just over 2.5 inch cutting area, almost 3 inches blade, but definitely less than 3 inches if you're worried about that for legal reasons. Your handle length is coming in at about 3.25 inches. Your grip area, or I'm sorry, your overall handle length is about 3 3/4. Your grip area is about 3.25, and then your overall length is just over 6.5 inches. Very, very compact, very, very compact knife, which I appreciate, but also is wide enough and neutral enough that it still fills the hand. So for me, with my medium size hands, sitting right behind that guard there, I can still monkey fist this and get a full finger grip. If I choke back, it's like a 3.5 finger grip, but because of the way this coffin handle is designed, your pinky kind of rides right on that cut there, which is really, really nice. So you still feel like you're getting a 4-finger grip. And because this guard isn't super pointy or pronounced or anything, you actually can choke up around that guard and get right behind that edge, which I really like. It actually reminds me, excuse me as I move some knives around here, it very much reminds me of how Josh from Offensive Industries does his guards, where they're just kind of rounded. They're enough to keep your finger from slipping up, and they let you know where you are in conjunction to how close you are to the edge, but they're rounded so you can choke up on top of them, and they don't like poke into your hand or anything like that. It very much reminds me of that, which is when actually I don't have it here right now, but the one knife that I have designed has a similar guard to that. So this is like, if I designed a handle for a small knife, this is how I do it. So I was really impressed by that. The guard works, but you can still get up close to the edge. The blade is nice and slicey. The spay blade, having the clip here, drops it down to a centerline tip, so it's very easy to get down and use that tip. But you also have plenty of belly. You have a little bit of flat back here. 14C 28N was a great choice for this. because it is a very tough stainless steel. So obviously stainless, which a lot of people are looking for, but also if you're doing something this thin, that gets this thin behind the edge and this thin at the tip, you need a steel that's going to have a lot of edge stability, and 14C28N is that steel. I have not had any problems with this chipping out at all or anything like that. It was a breeze to sharpen, again, 14C28N doesn't hold an edge for forever, but for a budget steel, it does a good job, and it's very, very easy to maintenance. I sharpened this once when I dulled it out just to see how it would sharpen, and then I've just been stropping it, and it has maintained its edge just fine with stropping. The action is great. This is running on bearings, which normally I would... Actually, is this running on bearings? Yeah, this is running on bearings. But normally I prefer washers, but this has a very, very nice action. And one of the reasons I don't like crossbar locks is that they pretty much always have some amount of blade play. This one does not. This is Civivi's first crossbar lock, and this has absolutely no blade play. This is bank vault solid, up, down, left, and right. There's no play in this lock at all. But it's still very easy to actuate. The springs aren't under a ton of tension. It drops shut very smoothly, and it still has enough of tension there that it flicks out very nicely. I wouldn't have minded a little bit more tension just for a little bit more quote-unquote detent for the blade, but that being said, it works just fine. I've never misfired this or anything like that, so it works out very well. Very compact. Let me just get a weight on this for you, and then I'll get you some size comparisons before we close out the video. So your weight is 2.8 ounces. So that's about an ounce an inch kind of thing. It's a little bit heavy for the size, but not unbearably so, and especially once it's open, it's actually balanced very, very well. These are skeletonized liners on the inside, so they have quite a bit of weight savings. The jimping's in the right places, the ergos are good, the blade is slicey, and it's supporting a guy who I've enjoyed watching his content for years now. So, again, not a huge Civivi fan, but this one has definitely impressed me. Let me just get you some quick size comparisons on here before we close this video out. Here it is next to the Para 3. Here it is again, just using some of the same knives here. Chris Reeve Large Sebenza. Here it is against the TRM Neutron 2. We'll do some different stuff here as well. We'll do some traditional knives. GEC Farm and Field. Let's see, here is just your standard Case Mini Trapper. Let's see, here is the, this is actually an upcoming review. This is the new Reate XL from Spyderco. Here is your standard full-size trapper. And then let's do some other knives just for, you know, try to get everyone in the everyone in here. Here's the Microtech brachial. And one more, let's do, this is just a fun one. Not a lot of people are going to have this, but here is the Emerson CQC 16. So that should give you a decent overall idea of the size of this knife. Guys, that is going to be it for this video. I really appreciate you sticking around for a little bit of a longer video as I talk about a couple different things here. I'm going to pull everything back out here so you can see it here. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything that I talked about. Again, thank you to Atlas Industries for sending these two along. Thank you to EDC Bonanza for sending these two along for me to borrow. I will be hitting you up on Instagram pretty soon here to send these back to you, even though I really don't want to get rid of this guy. And thank you to myself for buying this for me. But anyways, guys, links to all this stuff will be down in the description. Again, thank you to the sponsors of the channel. All their stuff will be linked down in the description. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave it down below in the comment section. As always, I will see you guys in the next video.